Det er merkelig det signalet, altså.
Hvor er det kommer fra? Kommer det fra Vertshuset?
Det kan da ikke være, vi har ikke noe sender der. Det er jo noen merkelige radiosignaler.
Du, la oss gå og sjekke. Nei, det begynner å glitche helt. Jeg skjønner ikke. Hvor er døra? Den er jo opp ned. Hæ?
Ser du han fyren der? Han lange fyren som står ved siden av. Nei, vi får forte oss inn!
Today we're joined by a guest that many people in the tabletop RPG community already know very well. Jason Cordova is the designer behind several hugely influential indie RPGs, including Brindlewood Bay, the game where players solve murder mysteries as a group of curious elderly women, which in turn have helped inspire a whole wave of games often called Carved from Brindlewood. His latest project is Public Access, an analog horror mystery game about strange broadcasts from a small town's public access TV station. Public Access has already generated huge interest with more than 5,000 people signed up to be notified when the campaign launches on Kickstarter. So Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Can you tell us a little about yourself? Because I've seen you online, but I don't know much other than you designing all these games.
Sure. I am the founder and operator of a community called the Gauntlet gaming community, which is initially started as a local play group in Houston, Texas, but eventually grew to be about podcasting. And then around 2018 or so, we got into publishing full time. And I started publishing other people's games and like smaller, like kind of zine projects. And then I did my own first game. My game was Brindlewood Bay in 2020. And yeah, I've been doing full-time role-playing game publishing and podcasting since 2020. And it's been great. I'm a big TTRPG fan. I go really far back with the hobby. Not that matters, but I do.
We always like to hear what's the like the first.
Sure. Yeah, my origin story. Yeah. So when I was 10 years old, my dad used to take me to this comic book shop in Oceanside, California, and this comic book shop. One time we were there was this, they had on the shelf the Marvel superheroes role-playing game. And this would have been like, the mid 80s, I guess, or mid to late 80s. And I didn't know what it was, but it was a game and it involved Marvel superheroes. And so I wanted it. And so he got it for me. And I actually spent, I don't know, probably like a couple months not knowing what I was looking at. I had no idea because I didn't know what Dungeons and Dragons was. I didn't, this is very pre-internet, right? So there was no way of like finding out what this was. And so I was like kind of reading these very complex for me books and not really understanding it at all. But then this older kid came over, knew what role-playing games were, and actually like ran it for me. Like I made a character and he ran the game for me. And I can actually still remember like very vividly the first time I had made like some kind of villain character that shot lightning out of his hands or something.
What was your? Yeah. I was going to ask, what was your chosen like?
Superpower? It was like I don't know, like a lightning villain was the coolest thing I could think of when I was 10. So that's what I had. Yeah. And I remember my character was like trying to rob a jewelry store, right? And I remember this older kid who was running the game saying, "Okay, well, what do you do?" And I remember like being like, "Well, what do you mean? What do I do? I don't know what you mean. What do you mean? What do I do?" He's like, "Just what do you do? Just tell me what you do." And it took me a minute to get there, but once I did, I kind of felt like it was like all this possibility, like you could do anything, right? Like I could say anything right now and anything could happen in the story, we could be doing it. And so that's always really stuck with me, that feeling. And I think I've been kind of chasing that feeling like most of my life now, I took a little break from role-playing games in the aughts, and I was just doing board games at that time. And then I kind of came back to role-playing games in 2013, drawn very much by the sort of Forge and indie RPG movement, Nordic LARP, all kinds of like just these sort of like indie movements kind of drew me back to the hobby. And so then I went looking for people in Houston to play, and that was how the Gauntlet started.
But when did you become interested in actually going from playing games to designing games like this? Like, was it something specific that happened that inspired you to start?
I think if you asked like 12-year-old me, like if you told 12-year-old me that I'd be doing this as my job in my late 40s, I would be like, of course, obviously, it's, like, obviously it's what I'm doing. Like,
that's what I do.
Yeah. like, of course. But then of course, you become an adult and 20-year-old me couldn't imagine that would be my job. Right. I think it's a combination of things. I mean, you get really deep in the hobby, and I am always the GM or the facilitator of games. I choose to be. I like to run games. And so that's just a step or two away from designing games, right? You're kind of writing games when you run a game,
True.
And so, and the barriers to entry are relatively low now in the world of PDFs, and at least until last year, very easy trade. And so it was kind of like just a thing that was not too hard to get into. It actually kind of started, the Gauntlet was doing so much. Like we had so many like activities and events that we were hosting and doing that we started to just kind of need the money, and so we had our Patreon that we set up, and as part of the Patreon, we did this like online or digital magazine called Codex that we put together that kind of featured like, kind of indie things, new game creators, like just all kinds of like little stuff. And we used that as a way to sort of help bring in money for the Gauntlet to support what we were doing. And then just kind of grew from there. Like it just became more serious and more, it just increasingly became my job. So, and so I made the switch. I made the jump.
Sounds like sounds very familiar with how the trajectory is here. So, I heard about the Gauntlet maybe, I don't know, maybe it was 10 years ago. I'm kind of bad on, time. But I was thinking it was kind of like a spiritual successor to the Forge. Was that?
In some sense, yeah.
In some sense, was it like a reaction to the heavy theories, or or it's something else?
I think the difference between the Gauntlet and the Forge is the Forge was very much about like theory, right? Like it was about the theory of role-playing games and discussing the theory of role-playing games and kind of challenging what tabletop role-playing games could do, sort of moving the window in terms of like, games that are meant to simulate something versus games that are meant to tell a story in a certain way, or to tell a specific kind of story. And so it was very theoretical. And what I would say the Gauntlet is much more like putting all that in practice, right? So the Gauntlet was very much play oriented. We're interested in theory as well. We always have been, but play is the thing when it comes to the Gauntlet. Like we were very much like get games on the calendar. It started as a face-to-face meetup in Houston, and it kind of started on like a Friday night that then became every Friday and Wednesday night, and then became every Friday and Wednesday and Sunday morning, like at our big Wednesday group, which is still going, incidentally, down in Houston. There'd be like 4 or 5 tables going at once, and so it kind of became this like play-oriented thing. And so we understood role-playing games through the vector of play and through the lens of play. And so that was a slight difference, as opposed to just talking about it in theoretical terms. And so in some sense, it was sort of the natural evolution of what had kind of started in the Forge, right? Like, and then of course, you have like some of our like, I guess for lack of a better word, like our contemporaries, I guess, like Magpie, or like what Evil Hat's doing lately. Like we were all kind of like in there in the mix there, and started to like also figure out how to take it to like also be marketable, right? Like that's a big step, right? Like how do you make it like something that can actually be a viable business, which is a whole different consideration, And so
it is.
So yeah, that's kind of I would say that's the difference. I'm not convinced that the Forge, when it was there, was ever very interested in the marketing of games, or like or even like the active play of them, to be quite honest. Like, but I wasn't around during those times. This is all kind of secondhand knowledge for me, but yeah, that's what I would say is the difference.
Yeah. So would you say like the Gauntlet had a lower bar of entry? Because the Forge was like, if you weren't in it, it looked very daunting to.
It could
like,
be a little alienating.
that.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah. I wasn't there. Like I said, I came back to the hobby in 2013, and the Forge was, gone by then. But yeah, the Gauntlet was very. We were always about like, okay, what's the short pitch that can get people to come to this meetup? Okay, we're going to play Monster Hearts. All right, well, what's the pitch? How do you get people who only know Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder to play Monster Hearts, right? So it would be like, it's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Twilight. And that's an imperfect description of Monster Hearts, but it was enough to like get people to want to come, right? Yeah. And so we would have people show up.
Elevator pitch.
Yeah, we'd have people show up on a Wednesday and be like, I heard there's like, you're playing like some Buffy game. And we'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I try to describe like TTRPGs to my mother. That's like, oh, it's Lord of the Rings. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But you can do stuff with the dragon. Okay, I guess. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah. No, it was very much like, how do we like open we were very much about like just getting people who have no idea what these games are, like just interested in some sense, and we had a lot of luck with it. You'd have people show up who are like just very like, oh, they know Pathfinder. At the time it was Pathfinder. They know Pathfinder or they know Dungeons and Dragons, and that's what they know, that's what they're comfortable with, and they never quite warm up to indie games, and that's okay. Like you can't do anything about that, but
can't win them all.
Yeah, but we've always done a pretty good job of like getting people to kind of try different things,
So this new game you got going called the Public Access. Well, it's been available for a while.
My new 3-year-old game.
Yeah, it's not new in that sense, but it's new in that it's actually a physical book and the latest iteration. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another pitch. What would you say to people to get them to play this one at your meetup?
Yeah, so I think that probably the best way to describe public access, I love to describe public access in terms of creepypasta and analog horror, because that's what people have most likely touched in their lives, I have not had to sell public access in this way necessarily, because by the time public access came out in 2023, we had a very well-established community of players, who were able to get into it. But public access is, for some people, they're going to love the parts of it that are very internet horror, creepypasta, analog horror, genre, like horror subgenres are a big deal in public access. People are going to like gravitate toward that. But what the game is really about is it's about memory, and it's about nostalgia, and it's about how memory betrays you. And I'm particularly interested in this idea of your memories from childhood are incredibly powerful on you as a person, right? Against all logic and rationality, they have a lot of control over you. They have a big influence on your life, and yet they are entirely unreliable. Like they're just so completely unreliable. Like your childhood memories are nothing like what probably happened, And so there's something about that space that I find really interesting. That space between the power of memory, particularly childhood memory, but also the fact that such memories are often not reliable. To me, there's a really deep well of horror there. And that's what public access is all about.
Yeah. And we probably all relate to that. We have some weird, vivid memories from our childhood that we can tap into.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you give us a lowdown on how the game works? It's I've heard it's your design, and it's Brindlewood based in a sense with the rule system. But who are we playing? What do we do, and who is it for? What makes it stand out? Those kind of things.
Yeah. So in public access, you play a group of young people, like 20-somethings, in 2004, the summer of 2004 in New Mexico. It's very specific, right?
Okay.
And these people all met on an online forum called the Deep Lake Odyssey. And the Deep Lake Odyssey is a forum for people who remember this public access television channel from their childhood that no one else remembers. They all remember it. They remember the programs that were on it, and they talk about it on this forum. But broadly speaking, no one remembers it. There's no evidence that it ever existed. But they're convinced of it. And so this group of people, the characters, they decide to spend the summer in the small town where the station was supposed to have been located. And as it turns out, the group of player characters also spent part of their childhood in this town, which is why they remember the station. And so they decide to rent a house in this town and spend the summer trying to figure out what happened to this public access television station. I should mention, because I've discovered that a lot of the public access TV is a very uniquely American thing. So I'll kind of describe what that is. Yeah.
We actually do have some like local stations, you know.
It's a similar idea. So they're not really a thing anymore, but back in like the 80s and 90s, most or larger local, like a lot of communities had what were called like a UHF station or a cable access station or a public access station, right? And the idea is this was a channel set aside for the public. And so you could reserve time as a taxpaying citizen, you could reserve time on that channel to have your program that you've recorded aired. And there weren't a lot of limitations on it. You could kind of, like, if you had the time blocked, you could put your program on there. And so you would have like people doing little low budget cooking shows, or this is where a lot of like conspiracy theorists would, get on. They'd be on TV talking about their weird conspiracy theories, or call-in shows, health advice, like all kinds of things. And in terms of like the kind of pop culture of public access TV stations, they're known to be very low budget and weird. That's the key. Like, it's just really strange things. And it's a strange channel that you could turn to and just see something odd or just low budget, weird thing, And so people my age, there's a good chance if an American kid of my age saw this, right? We saw these programs, and it's so different from everything else on TV. You don't really understand what it's all about, but it was essentially YouTube before YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea, is this station in the game, in this game setting, this station actually provided like studio space where you could go and record your program and have it aired. And but then it disappeared. Like it just vanished from the face of the earth. And so these characters, when the game starts, they have rented this house, and they're going to try to figure out what happened to this television station with all these weird, strange programs that they watched when they were kids. And when they get there, and this is the actual like main gameplay of the game, they don't have any luck with the TV station initially, but they do discover that this town has all kinds of other bizarre and odd mysteries in it. There's all kinds of unusual, frightening things going on in this town. And so they get kind of wrapped up in these other mysteries. And then, as it turns out, though, these other mysteries do end up having something to do with the central public access mystery, right? And so that's the whole gameplay. The gameplay is like investigating all these like tertiary mysteries that then connect up to the bigger public access mystery. And the sort of the big like thing that kind of connects it all up are these tapes called the Odyssey tapes. And the Odyssey tapes are, in the fiction of the game, the Odyssey tapes are these legendary internet objects that each tape contains an episode from one of the programs on this TV station. And in the game, you quote unquote watch the tape by doing some narrative prompts, and they kind of guide you through the whole episode. But you watch the tape, and then in this new edition of public access, one of the things you do is you then define a clue from the tape that helps you answer the question of what happened to TV Odyssey. This is the name of the TV station. What happened to TV Odyssey? And so as they're investigating these other mysteries, they're also trying to find these tapes. And then as they watch the tapes start to say something about the bigger mystery, right? There's also a chance that the other mysteries have a direct connection to the TV station mystery as well, because when you get ready to answer a question for one of these other mysteries, there's a chance that, you might if you roll high enough when you get ready to theorize, that the answer to that question is also a clue to what happened to the TV station. And so what feels like initially like a bunch of separate little stories going on in this town, it starts to come together in this much bigger, sometimes it's a conspiracy, sometimes it's a cosmic horror kind of thing, sometimes it's something more Lovecraftian. Like the idea is, and this is kind of getting to the actual hard mechanics, all these mysteries, they don't have solutions that are set in stone. Like the keeper, which is what we call the GM, the keeper does not know the answer to what happened to the family on Escondido Street that disappeared one day in 1994, or what happened to this young woman who got possessed by a board game at a slumber party, or, or like what happened to these teenagers who were playing Serpents and Sepulchres and got kidnapped by Satanists. What happened to them? We don't know. The keeper doesn't know what happened, but we're going to find out. The players are going to, the characters are going to collect clues, and then they're going to have a conversation. Once they have enough clues, they're going to have a conversation. They're going to engage in actual deduction to figure out what is the answer, and then that's kind of the core of it, I think.
It reminds me, of course, of TV series from the 90s that Erie, Indiana. Do you know about that?
Sure. Yeah,
TV show?
Erie, Indiana is a great shout. Twin Peaks is a great shout. Any shows like that are very in the same vein. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So
you got the new Stranger Things, of course, but that's, this more like, instead it's 2004, you said it was a very specific time and place. Is it because you...
Because I'm that age. Yeah.
Well, that's the perks of being the designer of the game.
Yeah, you write what you know.
Yes, I was in my 20s in 2004. I actually think 2004 is also a good year, because if you think about
pre-smartphone age, not everything is connected.
That's right. It's right before smartphones. The internet hasn't really taken off yet. Like it is, but it's not. We haven't got. We're not at like social media and YouTube yet, right? Like it's not it's going to be. And so that hasn't, that's a thing, but it's not super part of our lives necessarily. And yet, the 80s and 90s are just far enough away to where it feels nostalgic when you kind of engage with that kind of stuff. And so it's a good number as far as that goes. In the States, it's also post 9/11, but it's not right after 9/11. It's like a little bit further past, so it kind of works. A lot of people ask me like, well, I wasn't alive in 2004, or I wasn't an adult in 2004, or I'm not from the United States, and so I don't know anything about New Mexico, or there's people who might have like a sort of like apprehension about engaging with such a specific setting and a specific set of characters. But as it turns out, I actually think that like not knowing much about New Mexico in 2004 or ever is kind of an advantage, because it's a weird setting. It's okay if you don't know everything, right? That actually kind of adds to the eeriness of it, in the way I look at it. So.
I would also say that, looking at Stranger Things, for instance, that most people watching it, a lot of people watching it, they weren't alive at all.
Yeah,
either.
Exactly.
But they still know the references. They still know what it's about. And I think that basing it on like creepypasta, internet horror, that's something people of all ages could read and like, and horror.
Also, less of a danger of becoming a parody, because the time didn't have like the same kind of exaggerated style as the 80s.
I think that's right. I expect in like 5 or 6 years, people will have defined a style of the early aughts. I'm sure they have now, but it's not. You're right. It's not as like the 80s especially is so. It has such a kind of like vividness in our imaginations, because of things like Stranger Things and other pop culture things. But also, I was there. It was just a bigger, more colorful, more kind of like. In some senses, outlandish time. But also it has this like, in the United States at least, it was also like an incredibly vapid time and really, really like focused on materialism and money. So it was this, it was such a particular time in the United States. And so, it kind of stands out in the popular memory in that way. I was a teenager in the 90s, and so the 90s, of course, are very vivid to me. But it did take me a while before I could like look back on the 90s and be like, oh yeah, that's a thing from the 90s, you know, like that style of dress or that type of, the way movies were shot or whatever, you know. Yeah, but you're right. I can't say in 2026 that if I think of 2004, honestly, the only thing I can really think of is just like the horror movies were really shitty in 2004. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
really bad.
When people started going from like a practical effects on movies to it's the beginning of like CGI, which was pretty bad.
It was bad. Yeah, it was real bad.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm a horror guy, and so I'm very critical of like that particular period of horror. There are some good horror movies from that era, like Joyride, or or things like that, but mostly it was a very, it was a pretty like, I would say like a very like just saccharine or plain, unchallenging kind of like a glossy take on the genre, which would get shaken up a few years later with like, all the torture porn and things like that. And the jump scare movies. But no, yeah. So 2004 doesn't stand out in the memory. So in that sense, yeah, I guess it does kind of make it like a nice, like kind of cipher. It's a thing you can just pour whatever into it.
Clean slate.
Yeah, that's always I think always find it a bit interesting in modern horror movies set in like past 2020. That they always have to come up with an excuse, but why they just can't pick up their phone.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have any coverage. The police won't pick up, I guess. Okay. Just a suspension of disbelief. Yeah.
What I remember about 2004 was that was basically the death of tabletop RPGs because of World of Warcraft.
That's right. Yeah.
Because that came out that year, and all the groups stopped playing tabletop and just started playing World of Warcraft, and also White Wolf went down around that time.
Yeah.
So I saw, I didn't watch it all the way through, but it's a long review from Quinn's Quest that came out quite recently. So I was thinking, did that have an effect on the interest for the game? Because I was working at a local gaming store here in Norway. After he talked about Delta Green, we had to buy up a lot of Delta Green to sell.
Yeah. No, we've definitely noticed an uptick. The Quinn's Quest effect is very real. It's actually it's why we bumped up the Kickstarter, because we were actually going to do this Kickstarter like in the summer. We were going to do it like kind of in the mid to late summer, but because of the Quinn's Quest video, we were like, oh, we've got to move it up because we have to take advantage of this spotlight. Like it would be very foolish not to. No, it has a big effect. Our products, and in the video he makes kind of a joke of the fact that there is no physical public access, right? So they can't there's no run on game stores for public access because that's not a thing yet. But we've definitely noticed a really big jump in PDF sales, and I'm really hoping that like it translates into like support for the Kickstarter campaign. I mean, the Gauntlet, we're pretty good at Kickstarters at this point. We do pretty well as far as that goes, but I'm hoping that Quinn's Quest will kind of bring a lot of like extra attention to it. And one thing that I've really appreciated as a game designer and as a person who is very invested in kind of helping people try out different ways of doing a tabletop role-playing game, right, is that I'm seeing people like talk about my techniques in places that I don't normally see them talk about them, right?
Yeah.
They're having conversations, that prior to Quinn's Quest were pretty much limited to the Gauntlet and maybe like the circle just outside of the Gauntlet of like RPG communities, So that's been really, really nice. Just being able to just to see people like beyond kind of like the hardcore indie scene, like engage with these other techniques, this other way of doing role-playing games, because it is a really different way of doing role-playing games. So that's been really, really satisfying for me. That's probably like that's the thing I'm most happy about.
Because as we mentioned earlier, that there's already over 5,000 people who've signed up on the preview page, which is amazing. Well, the tabletop RPG space, I feel, has become pretty crowded the last few years, especially when it comes to Kickstarters and crowdfunding in general. Yeah. So what would you say is the biggest hurdle or challenge when trying to get a new RPG noticed today?
Well, I think the biggest challenge, which we've solved in the Gauntlet, but is also a very slow process. The biggest challenge is to get people to actually play your game, right? That is the absolute hardest thing. A lot of people will be can be drawn in by artwork or by like if you're doing a licensed game, like be drawn in by the license, like that can get you a lot of like initial excitement, but it doesn't mean they're gonna stick with you for the long haul, right? Like that's no guarantee that people are gonna like play your game, and so that's the real tricky part. If you don't have any kind of marketing budget, it's extra hard because you may not even be able to get people to look at your game, much less play your game, right? So, but the playing of the game is a really big challenge. In the Gauntlet, we have taken care of that. It's always been, like, as I said at the top of the conversation, play has always been a really, really big focus for us. And so we put out a game, in the case of public access, 3 years before the crowdfunding. Like the game, it's the older version of the game, but it was complete. It was a complete playable version of the game. We put it out 3 years ago. And that 3 years gives us time to let the game build up a fan base, to build up an audience, to get people to like understand the concepts and the characters, and to fall in love with the NPCs and all that stuff. And then from the design standpoint, from the editorial standpoint, it gives us time to see what's working in the game and to play it ourselves more and to kind of get a feel for it. And what do we need to change? What do we need to adjust? And so that when we do get ready to do the crowdfunding in 3 years later, when we do get ready to do the crowdfunding, we're making the sort of ultimate version of the game, right? We're making the one that we're going to be most happy and excited to put into an actual book. And so we've always done this. We did it with our game Trophy. We were publishing Trophy digitally for like 2 years before we did the Kickstarter for Trophy. Brindlewood Bay was 2 years before we did the Kickstarter for Brindlewood Bay. The Between was 3 years before we did the Between. And so that's how we do it in the Gauntlet. Not everybody has that kind of runway, but we do.
And patience.
And patience, yeah. So, but I actually think it's one of the nice benefits of this, apart from the fact that you're able to build up a, kind of an audience for your game, it also kind of makes it so our games always feel new, which is an interesting little magic trick, right? Because Brindlewood Bay has been out for 6 years now, right? But there are people still discovering Brindlewood Bay every day, and to them it feels very new, right? But it also affects how we interact with it, right? Like as the Gauntlet and as my team, we treat every game like it's fresh, right? Like we keep supporting it, we keep playing it, we keep running it, we keep trying to, and so it's nice when you're kind of creating an ecosystem like we do with the Carve from Brindlewood games. You create this ecosystem that always feels like fresh and vibrant and people are playing it and iterating on it and creating their own stuff for it. And it's the right way to do it. But that's not easy to do if you're a small creator or you don't have like a community behind you. But we've taken the time to build that community, and so that's how we do it. I do think there are some shortcuts though. If you don't have all that kind of like people power that we have, one thing you can do that can really help you cut out a lot of that is to get a really good actual play video done of your game. That is that's worth its weight in gold, right? Like if you can get a good AP of your game, a video that you can share whenever you talk about it somewhere, it helps you a huge amount. And I'm honestly surprised more game publishers don't do it. Like we do it. We are all about APs. Let's get an AP out there. Let's get a video out there. Like there are so many hours of me running my games on the internet, like because I think it's an important part of it. It's for sure. And so that is one thing that a person can do if they're trying to get eyes on their game is show it in action and make it really easy for people to watch it,
Yeah, whenever I'm trying to learn like a new system, especially if it's not D20 based, I find it just a bit difficult sitting in front of my computer reading a PDF 100 times. But then watching an actual play is like, oh, I see. Oh, okay, that's how you...
Kind of clicks. Yeah. Great advice.
Yeah, that's my number one piece of advice. I mean, like for a... If you don't have like the Gauntlet, to play your game, like you should do something that at least shows it being played,
We are actually doing something similar, but on a very, very much smaller scale here in Norway, because we have like a community, and this weekend we actually have like a meetup for tabletop designers and
cool.
trying out their newest projects and stuff like that. But
awesome.
It seems more organized, I must say. You talked about Kickstarters, and so one of the questions I've written down is, do you feel like crowdfunding is a necessary evil, or do you mainly see positives with this model?
I love it. I mean, I'm not a crowdfunding hater. I'm not. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, it's it's this necessary evil, or it's like or it kind of like warps people's perception of what is success or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I like it a lot. Because to me, I mean, it kind of happens to like play into my strengths as a promoter, like it kind of works well for how I operate, so I like it in that way. But I actually think that there's on some level, especially when it comes to indie RPGs, I won't speak for the bigger imprints like Free League and stuff like that. Like they have their own stuff that they're dealing with, and I can't speak to what their experience with things is. But for smaller outfits like us and for indie press, there are not many great ways of getting marketing and attention, right? Like there just aren't many great ways. And, you can make as many podcast appearances or as many, Twitch stream appearances as you can fit in. And you can even do my advice of making an AP video, but at some point there's still a limit at like how much attention you can get on it. If you're really lucky, you get Quinn's Quest or Critical Role or somebody like that to play your game, right? That's great. If you can do that, that's awesome. But most people don't have that, right? And so, on some level, Kickstarter, BackerKit now, increasingly BackerKit, they help bridge that gap, right? They help like make it so that like you can have a big audience. You can punch much above your weight in terms of like what you're able to do. There are some downsides, obviously. Like probably the biggest downside for us is that, we are perceived as a much bigger team than we are. It's just like me and a couple people, it's not like we're not some big, huge company, but like a lot of times people perceive you to be a much bigger company. And so that kind of warps expectations a little bit. But so there's, it has its downsides. And I never recommend people deal with the Kickstarter comments, right? Like I literally pay someone to deal with all that because I can't deal with it. Like it is emotionally so distracting for me that I literally don't look at it. Someone else does that for me. But all in all, I think it's great. To me, there are so few ways for the indie RPG designer or company to get attention. Like it's just so hard. And so why not use whatever tools are available? I mean, and there's, there's something to be said about like, well, once you have enough capital, then maybe you don't do that anymore. Here's where you can maybe like level criticism at the Free Leagues of the world or at the Modifiuses of the world or whatever, right? But Magpie. But like, I don't know. I mean, they have an obligation to promote their game too, so I can't really, it's not really for me to judge, So
I've been going a few rounds with that myself because it's like, Free League doesn't need it really, but they do because it's like all the backers are kind of like the the ones who are actually like invested from the start, and you need invested players.
Even if they don't need it, they're leaving money on the table if they don't do it, right? So so it's like it's hard to, I don't know, do I hate it when I have a campaign that launches at the same time as them? Yes, but
that has happened.
But I can't really it would be, I don't know, I get it, I get what I'm not. And this is what it is.
But have the thought of creating something that is meant to be sold and to be bought by people, has that had any impact on the way that you design games? Like, do you have it in mind that this product that you're making is supposed to be marketable down the line?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I do not at all subscribe to this notion that art for art's sake is no. I create art to be consumed and to be interacted with, and I want people to play my games. Now, I think I can present my personal artistic vision in a way that is marketable. When Brindlewood Bay came out, a lot of people were very skeptical of the idea that a game about where you play elderly women would be something that people would want to engage with, right? I had to tell that story, right? But no, I'm always thinking about how do I get people to play it, because it's not even so much like the money making or marketing part of it. It's just like I just want people to play it, I want people to play my game, and so I'm definitely thinking about it in those terms. I am not inclined to make something that's just
obtuse,
odd, obtuse for its own sake, and especially if I don't think someone's going to play it. That's just not for me. I'm not that guy. I want to play my game.
Does that translate into like the illustration you choose? Does it translate to how you write the game specifically, or do you make it simpler for those?
I think my games are pretty easy anyway, so I don't really I know that's a lot of people don't agree with that necessarily, but I think my games are pretty easy to play. So just to begin with. And so that's I guess that's something that I do have in my mind. I one of the things that I'm really proud of, I get a message at least once every couple weeks. I get a message from someone saying that usually Brindlewood Bay, but sometimes the Between or Public Access was their first game they ever GM'd, right? They'd never GM'd a game before. It was the first one, and they had such a good time, and it was so easy for them. And I love that. That to me is the best kind of feedback to get, right? I love that. That keeps me going all day whenever I get a message like that, right? And the reason why is because I consider myself a GM's game designer. I like to write games for GMs because I think it's really important that they know how to run the game and that they feel confident in running the game, right? And so it does affect how I write the games. I try to do a mix of in the beginning of the text, the pure rules of the text is very formally written and doesn't have a lot of affect and is very just straightforwardly presented, right? But then the keeper sections, the support sections are much more casually presented, much more like casual language, because I want it to sound like it's just me talking to you, right? Like it's just me chatting with you, and kind of that's how I approach it. I think that it's something that we're getting better at. I think if I were to go back and do it again, I would probably present Trophy really differently than it is currently. Trophy's a great game. I didn't write Trophy, but I published it, and I love the Trophy games. They're fantastic, but I would definitely go back and change some things about how the rules are presented and how things are explained. And that's just the kind of thing that you get better at as you go. So what's nice though, for us at least, is we have such a deep well of people who can speak to these games and how they work and what's great about them and what to understand about them, there's always a resource available for somebody who just has a question, right? That's also part of that is also all the YouTube videos that we do and the actual plays that we co-produce with actual play channels. It's all, on some level, it's all about just having more resources for people to feel like the game is accessible and that they can play it, but in terms of the subject matter, I do think about what I think is marketable and what I think people will play. I have ideas that I'm not ashamed to say, but I'm a little I have ideas that I don't think are particularly marketable. And so I'm probably not going to write those games because I don't want to write a game that only I'm interested in. I want other people to play it.
That's fair. Yeah, that is a very good advice. We see that a lot in the Norwegian scene too, that it's very much art first, which is great, but it's not gonna reach very far if you're not very lucky, of course.
Yeah. Well, no, that was the Forge's problem, right? I mean, the Forge had that issue, right? The Forge was these are amazing games, amazing artistic expressions. I love many of those games, but I wouldn't say that a few handful of them aside, I wouldn't say many of them were really made for being accessible.
Mass consumption.
Yeah.
It's mostly like us, like old hats who have tried them, I guess, like Dogs in the Vineyard and stuff.
Right. Favorite game. One of my favorite games.
Dogs in the Vineyard was great, but it's a hard sell.
So yeah, it's right. Yeah, like I wish everybody would play My Life with Master, or or I wish everybody would play Dogs in the Vineyard. It's not easy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's hard to explain to the D&D people. I've been following you on the Blue Sky for a while, and I've noticed some frustration. You mentioned it earlier with the tariffs and maybe like distribution and stuff like that. So how has thing been since our new orange leader has taken?
I feel like we've kind of turned a corner on it, for us at least. We've kind of figured it out. It took us a while. He's such a fool. There's no other way to put it. I mean, and like just complete fool. And like
this is a good place to vent, you know.
The Norwegians are all agree with you.
Yeah. The most the most frustrating aspect of the trade situation is, normally you impose a tariff when you want to protect an industry, or you want to extract something from the other country, or you want to, you want to get some kind of parity. These are just a blanket tariff does nothing. It's just all, stupid. It's all it is just a tax on principally American consumers, right? And so that's frustrating about it in a sort of philosophical sense. But it's also very practically frustrating, because in the initial months of the trade war, we were just trying to talk with our attorneys and people who we were just what do we do? What do I have to price this stuff at? What should we be doing right now? And no one knew, no one could answer the questions. And so it was just a big black box of not knowing what the hell's going on. And so, but we've kind of turned a corner on it. The tariffs were ruled illegal by the Supreme Court. So that's great. He's still trying to impose via other statutes. Who knows if that's going to last? So we've kind of turned that corner as far as that goes for us. Honestly, our business right now, that part of our business is just trying to ride out the next 3 years, basically, until it's over. So that's kind of it.
Yeah, okay.
I wish it was, that's basically it. We have to just wait just three years. We got to just get past this 3 years, and hopefully everything will be better after that. So.
Yeah, we noticed some frustration over here too, because it's Norwegian publishers also are affected by it.
Yeah.
We're gonna take some questions from the community here, and the first question is quite simple. It's from Carl-Otto Christoffersen, who made the Quad and the West Marches campaign playstyle guidebook. If you know about those. What do you know about the Norwegian RPG scene, if anything?
I have played many Nordic LARPs. LARP is mostly what I know from the scene. I wouldn't say I know too much about the actual tabletop scene, though. Actually, weirdly, I have a very direct connection to the Norwegian video game scene.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah. So my best friend in the world, from many years, my best friend did the music for this Norwegian video game called Owlboy. Do you know Owlboy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I played it. That's a great game.
Yeah. So my best friend did the music for Owlboy, and so and that team they would frequently come to the United States and hang out with us. My friend and I, we lived together at the time. They would come and just hang out, and we'd talk about the Owlboy. I was aware of Owlboy many years before it came out, right? And anyway, my friend has continued doing all their music for their games, and so that's my connection to the Norwegian video game scene, at least.
That counts as games, sure.
Yeah.
That was left field, but that's cool. That's cool.
No, I wouldn't say I'm too connected to the tabletop part of it, though. But it's something I'm definitely open to learning about. In the last I'm to my great shame, the last 5 or 6 years, I've had to stay so laser focused on the Gauntlets games just for business reasons and time management reasons. I'm not even that clued into any scene.
Yeah.
Really,
Daggerheart?
I don't know. I kind of vaguely am aware of what's going on with the Forged in the Dark part of the hobby, and I'm kind of vaguely aware of what some of my competitors competitors are doing, but mostly I just had to stay so focused on our stuff that's really that's actually one of the real big downfalls when role-playing games become your job. You have to like, it changes your whole, like your ability to like play them as much as you want. Like the Gauntlet of today and the Jason Cordova of today is not the Jason Cordova of 2015 or 2014, right? Where we were playing like everything we could get our hands on, you know? I'm a very, very big fan, probably one of my favorite games, in my top 5 at least, which I believe is Norwegian. I could be wrong about this, is the Society of Dreamers. Have you ever played the Society of Dreamers?
Yeah, I never actually played it, but we know the designer quite well.
Yeah.
Matthijs Holter.
I love that game. It's probably, it's like top 5. And it's a huge influence on my game, The Between. Big influence on The Between, and just how I do kind of horror gaming in general. Like that's a favorite, but that's a really old, really old game. But
now it is.
no, but very fresh though. I've played it in the last couple of years, and it still feels so fresh. Like it still feels like unlike anything out there. So it's got that going for it.
It was like we called it the Holmestrand scene here in Norway, because it was like a bunch of guys that had the same kind of like taste in it was very much like in the LARP. They all were all LARPers, and Iteras By, which is also
I was going to
say
Iteras By is Norwegian, right? Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah.
Basically the same gang.
Yeah.
This question is from Bjørn Ove Asprem. He's a big fan of your design, who also released an adventure for Brindlewood Bay.
Oh, cool.
Probably a part of the Gauntlet, I guess. One thing players might be skeptical about is the fact that the mysteries in Brindlewood Bay have no set solution. What would you say to those who are hesitant to try Brindlewood Bay or public access because of this?
So this is hands down the number one question or concern I get about my games. And there's a short answer and there's a long answer. The short answer, depending on how much time you have,
we'll take both.
Yeah, the short answer is on some level you have to just kind of trust it and take a little leap of faith, because once you get playing, you realize what the game is doing and your concerns melt away completely. For most people. The longer answer is that I'm actually a big believer in the power of tabletop role-playing games as a form of entertainment versus other forms of entertainment. So here's what I mean by that. There's a lot of things that a tabletop role-playing game can't do. A tabletop role-playing game, it doesn't have actors necessarily, or production values like a movie. It doesn't have a forced perspective like a novel. It doesn't have graphics. It doesn't have there's a lot of things that a role-playing game doesn't have, right? But the one thing that a tabletop role-playing game has that no other form of entertainment can do is collaborative storytelling. A group of people sitting around a table talking to each other and creating a story together. That is the power of tabletop role-playing games. Now, a lot of more traditional role-playing games, that collaborative nature is weighted much more heavily in the favor of the GM, right? Like the GM gets to do most of the collaborating while the players contribute a little bit. I think a better model is what we do, which is narrative authority is shared much more around the table, right? And that in my games, that happens in lots of different ways, not just the mystery solving. It happens in the way you describe the scenes. It happens in the way when you do flashbacks, just doing world building in general. That it's all, the players have a big share in that, right? And the mystery solving is just part of it. And so what I would say is my game system takes advantage of, and indeed is bolstered by, what makes role-playing games so great, what makes them such a powerful form of entertainment. So, yeah.
Hallelujah.
Well, we do have one final question here from Patreon member Pelle Hogvar. He asks the timeless question: how do you overcome writer's block or creative burnout?
I have a really, I'm very similar to Vincent Baker. Vincent Baker and I are identical in this one way. Apart from the fact that I love all of his games. Vincent Baker and I do this thing that I'm not sure a lot of other game writers do. We write the whole game in one go. And so what I do is I think about the game for months, in the case of public access, years, before I actually put down a single word on digital paper, right? I think about the game. I think about what I imagine the game looks like. I use my knowledge of how games work at the table to envision the game. I think about different mechanical parts of it. I try to map out every part of the game in my mind and how I think it works. And often in that process, I'll have like a thing that I'm a little hung up on, or I'll call it like the keystone idea, the one little idea that I'm kind of waiting on to fall into place, that once I know how that works, then I'm ready to write the game, right? And so that's how I do. I think of the whole thing, like from start to finish. I even imagine the chapters, I imagine the characters, I imagine like I all of it. And then once it's settled in my mind, that's when I sit down to write. And when I sit down to write, I write it fast. So Brindlewood Bay, I wrote Brindlewood Bay in 2 days. I wrote the original public access, the one from 3 years ago. I wrote that in like a week. So but that's because that's just how I operate. So I don't usually have writer's block because I don't start writing until that thing is fully baked in my brain.
It can't catch up with you, no.
Yeah.
So you're not like overworked either because you only write for, you know.
When I'm ready to write, I often will rent a hotel room somewhere. Even just in the town I live in, I'll rent a hotel room because I write better in, like, when I'm in a really intense writing phase, I like to be in a different environment than my normal environment, and I just bang it out, and that's how I do.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of similar in that way. I also like.
That sounds a bit like you, Mikael.
Yeah, because we are 3 people really, but the other designer here, who isn't here at the moment, he works a little bit, you know, like 15 minutes every day. But I'm more like I'll just hammer it out in 2 days. But I'm working constantly about the ideas, and
I do, and I'm the same, and I'm always like consuming inspirational media. Music is a big one for public access. Music was a big one. Yeah. Horror movies were a big one. Like I'm always, and when I'm in that thinking process, I'm just taking in like everything that I think is a good inspiration. It's just all coming in. I'm thinking of the game. I'm trying to imagine the game. I'm trying to figure out whatever that one or two things are that I can't quite sort. I'm trying to get that sorted out in my head. And then once it's all done, the words just flow really, really fast. So I've never had a situation where I've been like, oh, I don't know what to write now. Like by the time I started writing, I knew what to write. So yeah. Yeah,
that's the end of our questionnaires, really. But do you have anything else we want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I mean, maybe you should get the chance to like give us like I don't know. Closing remarks about when the Kickstarter is launching. People should give you their money. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Something like
that. So as of this recording, the campaign launches tomorrow, March 17th.
Oh.
And it runs through April 12th. And so that's the timeline. We are going to be crowdfunding 3 things. The first is the core rulebook for public access, which contains everything you need to play a whole campaign. It's going to have the core rules, 8 mysteries, the campaign framework, and then a little bit of like setting support material. That's all going to be in the public access book. The second book is called Signals from the Other Side. Signals from the Other Side is more mysteries, an expansion of the setting, just like more setting detail, more resources for the setting of the town, and this other kind of like weird liminal extra dimensional space in the setting that I won't go into here. The mysteries, it's going to have more of the regular mysteries, but it also introduces this new type of mystery called a lost transmission. And a lost transmission is kind of like a side mystery or like a prologue mystery that the characters can unlock as they play through the campaign. And so that's all in that second book. And then the third thing we are crowdfunding is a deck of cards, the Odyssey tape cards. So those Odyssey tapes that I mentioned that the characters are looking for in the game, each of them is essentially like a little narrative, a set of narrative prompts that help you tell the story of that episode of TV. And they're all like really horrifying and strange episodes of TV. The cards are going to be presented like they are VHS tapes. And so they will look like a VHS tape on the back with like the label of the name of the tape on it. And then the other side will have the actual text of the card. And then they are presented in a box that is like an in-fiction Odyssey tape box, like a VHS box. So that is...
Great.
Yeah, those are the three things that we are crowdfunding. And this is an updated version of the game. If you are familiar with the game from 3 years ago, it's a refinement of that. And I think there's something there for everybody.
Are there any like planned stretch goals you want to
I can talk about a couple of them. Let's see. We have a lot planned. We don't know how many we're going to need, but we've got a lot planned. Probably there'll be more mysteries. That's always we'll have more mysteries, and we'll kind of put those stretch goal mysteries in that second book. That's where those will go. We have this stretch goal called the Nagoya County White Pages, which is just further setting material. Like, okay, the players want to go to the mall. Well, I don't know anything about the mall in Nagoya County, so let me go to the Nagoya County White Pages, and now I've got characters and things, that they might find at the mall, that kind of thing, right? And then there's a stretch goal to make a sort of like a companion app, a web app. We've been making these web apps for our games. We have one for the Between, and then we have one for this other game that we're working on called The Lands Remaining. And these are fantastic. They're really great because they can be used like for online play or in face-to-face play. If your players have their phones, you can kind of have your character on your phone, and it's all synced up together. So all the information is like live and synced up,
Wow.
So I would like to make one of those for public access. We have some like really, really kind of like that are kind of secret that I'm not sure what I should talk about yet.
Well, this episode comes out, after the launch.
We have a few collaborators we're really excited with, like collaborators that are outside of role-playing games, but who are very much connected to analog horror and synthwave and that whole scene. And so we have some stretch goal writers and stretch goal, not writers, but stretch goal creators who we are working with as well. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of cool things. It's some stuff that we've never done in a campaign before, which I'm really excited about. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Sounds cool.
Yeah. That sounds cool, man. So Jason, it's been a really nice interview with you.
Yeah, that's so much fun.
A lot of interesting, especially for us, like interesting ideas and tips on publishing and Kickstarters, but also like on your game design philosophy here. So and it's funny to see how you aligned it is maybe with that part of the Norwegian tabletop scene. So. Good luck with the. Is it Kickstarter or back a kit?
It's Kickstarter. It's Kickstarter this time.
It's Kickstarter. Okay. I'm getting those confused.
Yeah, I know it.
So everyone, watch out for the Kickstarter and go back it. And Simon.
Yeah.
His name is really Simon.
Yeah.
But it is a bit weird in English.
Yeah, it's better to just say, Simon. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Michael.
Is better.
Yeah, thank you for outing me. Yeah. Just at the end of the episode as well. Yeah,
it's kind of over now. It's okay.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.